Prusak here from Snow Goer magazine. We've been spending more time on these new Catalyst chassis Articats, and have a lot of impressions we're going to share with you today. But first, let's do a walk around on the machine. So the Catalyst, as you can see, probably it's narrower. It's kind of smaller feeling. The rider sits in a much more upright position versus a Pro Cross. This seat props me up so much higher and puts you in a much more aggressive position. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting is these footwells are almost skidoo-like, where you can. I have thrown a foot out into space when riding, so you kind of got to lock in your toes by lifting them a little bit if you're riding really aggressively. But the layout overall just feels so much lighter. That's the first impression every one of our test riders has had, is how much lighter these machines feel when you're going down the trail. And part of that is weight loss, but part of that also is where Articat put the weight. They laid the engine down lower and more back towards the rider, and then they moved the rider up. They also, with the fuel tank here, it's more forward and it's kind of stouter, and so it kind of sits right up here, comes way up here under the hood, and so you're just in a more kind of a centered position. So when you're going down the trail, you know, when you're throwing your weight into it and leaning off and stuff, you're really affecting the machine, I think, more than you did on the Pro Cross. So that's a nice feature. Overall, the machine, one thing that people have talked about a lot are these composite running boards. You know, well, are they strong enough? Are they going to work? There has been absolutely no flex in these when we've been riding them. Our team has been jumping them, doing some ridiculous things with them. No problem here. And they're also just kind of cool because they're different. When you walk around the back of the machine, there's these attachment brackets that are, you know, let's face it, kind of like Skidoo's link system. But, you know, it's a nice addition to the machine. You come up front, and again, you can just really see the narrowness of the machine. This front almost kind of looks like a beak. When you're riding on it, you get this feeling where it's like a snowcross machine where you're right over the nose if you're standing when you're riding on it. One of our test team members talked about the fact that it kind of feels, in a very good way, like the old Snow Pro 500, and a lot of Articat fans have great memories of that sled. And when Jeff said that to our team, everybody started nodding their heads. Yes, it feels like a Snow Pro 500, and again, that's a compliment. We love that sled. So now let's take some side panels off and show you guys some other things that are going on under the hood here. Nice, easy quarter turns on here. Comes right off. So this is the same clutching system that Articat has been using the last few years, and the secret on this is frankly, they designed these clutches for this chassis. Remember, they made a big deal out of the fact that they were narrower? Well, they're narrower so they fit in this chassis. That didn't matter as much in the Pro Cross. So pipe wraps around here. It's a lay-down engine. You can't really see that in there, but just a real compact look at it. But some of the real secrets to this new chassis are on this side of the machine. Right here is where a lot of the weight loss comes from. There's no big clunky chain case. It includes the oil reservoir and all that. This is the first belt drive system that you're going to find on a trail machine. Now, obviously, Polaris has used it on some RMKs for a while, but this coming to a trail sled is a big deal in terms of both weight loss and just kind of the reaction, the efficiency of the whole thing. Also, you got an oil tank that you can actually see when you're pouring the oil in instead of being dumped down here. As you can see, this entire area just looks and is smaller and more compact. Button this up. So if you come with me over here, now this machine can be ordered either in 129 inches or 137, and it can be ordered with or without the ATAC shock system. So if you don't get the push button control shocks, you get this brand new gauge. It's got a small, but it's easy to read. The controls are very familiar to Articat fans in terms of the, where you rest your hands and how it's all laid out. On this machine, It has the center pull start, but you don't need that because they all come with electric start except for the race machine. So it's a, you know, have the key on, simple, she fires up. Your hand and thumb warmers are here. Controls of your gauge are here. Again, if you have the ATAC shock package on it, this is where you control your soft, medium, firm of your shock settings. This one has the standard IFP Arctic Cat shocks on it. Goes down the trail just fine with those. The brake handle has a very natural feel to it, a nice kink in it where your fingers rest very naturally. That's actually a big upgrade that I like. I was not a big fan of the Procross brake lever that always seemed like it was so far away. But again, overall, it's just a really ergonomically sound package. You just feel very natural on this machine. You know, that said, the only caveat I would have is that some of my taller friends used to really like the Procross chassis because it was the only snowmobile left that had a long seat on it. Well, you know, if you're 6'5" or a bigger person, this seat does get pretty short in back, but it's a trade-off they made. So again, as you can see, we got the 129 here. It's the suspension systems really haven't changed. It's the you know, the slide action rear. It's their standard widely spread dual A-arm front suspension up front. Overall, as I said, our test riders really like the feel. It's you know, compared to competitive machines from Polaris and Skidoo, it doesn't necessarily like change the game because a lot of those guys have already moved the rider forward and lost some weight. But for Arctic Cat in particular, going from this to a Procross chassis, because there are some Procross sleds out here at our event as well, it's a big difference just in terms of, like I said, reaction, feel, kind of lightweight, you know, aura about the machine, but as much as anything, ergonomics, just being propped up in the right position. It comes with the 600 twin. I know that's controversial. I know some people want a bigger motor, and Arctic Cat's promised us a bigger one for next year. They've made no secrets about that. They're not going to publicly say how big that motor will be. The 600 got a new crankshaft. They did some other things with the exhaust valves and with the mapping and things like that. It feels like an Arctic Cat 600, a little bit spunkier maybe. But for a trail sled, it goes down the trail very well with that 600. You know, I know some of the deep powder guys are probably going to really desire that bigger power, and I can't blame them. But we'll see what the future holds for Arctic Cat for that. Overall, I think Arctic Cat has done a really nice job with this machine. If I had to pick one thing that I'd like to see improved on it, a lot of engine noise to the rider. So it's a little bit louder than the competition, but Arctic Cat riders usually are just fine with that. So again, this is your 2024 Catalyst Chassis ZR 600 129.